Good morning, everyone. So, I hope everyone has a really good day today. I noticed that I was just talking to my colleague yesterday that Melbourne has a really glorious sunny weather. So, compared to where I came from, which is in Melbourne, we may have the best coffee, but definitely not the weather. So, yeah. Well, Karina was telling me that I was the first presenter for after Nancy, and it was quite, as I told her like, yeah, it's good, but deep inside I was like quivering and shaking. It's like, yeah, pressure is on definitely. Now, it's quite nerve-wracking to be the first presenter because you set the tone, as Chris has mentioned. You also set the bar, but uh, the the but I am not that quite averse to presenting. Just a very quick bit about myself. My name is Sher Lentic. I am an applications engineer for Braymac, and I had 5 years of experience as a systems developer for contract manufacturers doing test development, and about 7 years of applications engineering experience. Now, yeah, so see the nerve. Right. Now, the thing with it is most likely nerve-wracking. I was quite rationalizing it, mainly because the audience that I have right now are mainly composed of experienced developers. Probably some of you guys actually have development experience, like maybe twice as I may have. Like Chris, for example, may have like 100 years of experience. So, so that's quite nerve-wracking. But the so but the thing is, I'm also quite excited as well to bring in the new things in LabVIEW. So it's like teaching your parents how to do Facebook. So what I'm about to discuss is about the new informations and tips and new features that are actually released quite recently in LabVIEW 2022, Q3, Q4, and up to LabVIEW 2023, Q1, Q2, and then Q3. So this presentation will be divided into three main subtopics. One is in productivity improvements. The next one is on project management. And the last one is on interoperability. There will be a last bit of it, which is the roadmap on where LabVIEW is going in terms of moving into 2024 and 2025 and so on, right? So let's dive into productivity improvement. So when you say productivity improvement, I usually would refer it to your shortcuts. So as experienced developers, you may have probably shortcuts that you may be using that you can actually customize. So those are parts of productivity improvements. It could also be tools built within LabVIEW. Like for example, I was part of a big team of systems engineers, and we do have source code controls over that. But the first layer of testing that we do is we do have a built-in VI analyzer, so as to make sure that everything that the developers are making are homogeneous. So that's one of the tools that that is built in with LabVIEW. You have the profile, memory profiler, you have those benchmarking tools and so on. But the very first improvement or feature that I'm really quite excited about it is, as you know, we are getting the Zoom. Yay! Come on, guys. It should be like, yay. When I first heard about it, that the Zoom feature is actually is released in LabVIEW 2023 Q3, I was quite giddy with it because being an experienced developer for about, I don't know, 10 plus years now, I was working with NI as an applications engineer, and one of the things that really struck me was that does this have a Zoom feature? And I was like, yeah, good question. I don't think so. Back then in 2020, in 2010, which when I started my career as an applications engineer, the monitor or the screen monitors are quite small. So if you have like big screens that can go from up and down, left to right, you would have to scroll left to right, 4 pages up, 4 pages down, 10 pages left, 10 pages right. So with the Zoom feature, it actually makes things a lot easier. So as far as I recall, I used control plus minus and the control plus plus to move left and right in order to move from one part of the code to another. But in this version of LabVIEW, the control plus plus will zoom out and the control plus minus will zoom in. So the coverage for that is about 250% zoom in and zoom out. So this makes, I mean, you would have to make your code still compact. It doesn't make an excuse to make your code like a haywire code. But regardless, this is a very good feature, and personally, this is quite exciting for me. So you can zoom in and zoom out as well while in development and while in runtime. So that is a good feature. Well, I don't really see the need for zooming in and zooming out while during runtime, but it might be useful when you are in, say, in your user interface mode. But when you are in development, this is a very good feature to see those wires hidden, hidden wires, those pesky wires that, especially if you have like those queued message handlers wherein those reference wires are all over the place. Now, the next feature, which is actually quite good as well, is what we call the execution highlighting. So we all use execution highlighting. Like for example, for myself, when I was starting as an AE, my background is on C++ or C programming. So everything is code from top to bottom, and then you will just run into a problem, and where the compiler comes out of an error, and then you would fix the code in the line, and then you would compile it again, and then you would have your error. Now, when I first started with LabVIEW, I have zero idea on programming LabVIEW. It is, I don't know if it's done in any company, but with NI, we're just given a book, like, hey, this is your first day, learn LabVIEW. It's like, okay, that's good. One of my mentors actually had taught me that, oh, you can actually do this execution highlighting, and this is one of the features that I've used throughout my career, especially when I'm debugging codes that are not mine, to make sure that I am able to follow the logic of the code. So with this new feature, you can actually press and hold. We all know that light bulb thing in the screen right now is your execution highlighting. We all know that since we are all developers here. But if you press and hold that light bulb, you would be able to choose the speed of your execution from slow to medium to fast to very fast. So it all depends on the level of proficiency that you have on how to use those speeds. But in any case, those are made available for you in this release of LabVIEW. Now, there is a feature, there is already an existing feature, which is what's called the quick drop. The quick drop, you just control space and you type in a feature or say a function that you would want to use, and then you would type in, and then it's like a quick search. It's like Google within LabVIEW, if you're familiar with the name of the function. Now, the quick change, on the other hand, is a relative of that in a way that what you would first do is you would first bring in the constant. So you would type in whatever, like maybe a number or a string, and then you would do a quick change list. So when you say quick change list, you would do a control space, and you would be able to change that constant into whatever data type that you have. So it could be string, it could be numeric, it could be anything, it could be array, and whatsoever. So an example of that is here. So like what this demo is showing. So the first thing that developer did was to type in 250, and then did a quick change. So the quick change, you can just actually highlight everything that you typed in, control space, and then you would be able to choose whether you would want to run it in, you would want to change it as a enum or any other numeric data type. So it also works with Excel row sheets. So like, for example, you have on your right side, the parameters, you have temperature, blah, 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 pressure, X position, Y position, Z position, and all those. You can just actually highlight them, bring it over to LabVIEW, do a quick change, and you would be able to have an enum. So I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one who has a pesky problems with enum, because I would have to type them all in one, type them one by one, and then do a type def, and then change it all over 100 parts of your code. So this is actually a very good feature. Now, the last one is a double click. So the double click is, I would say it's not on the top tier with, with the zoom and the quick change. It's more of like when you have a function. So those functions has controls and indicators. Now, when you have controls and indicators, what you would do in order to create a controller and indicator is that you would right click on any of those points and then right click, and then it would show whether you will want to create constants, create indicators, or create controls. So with a double click, what you can just do is that you can right click and then drag it over, double click, and it'll automatically create the corresponding data type for that specific point. I'll be showing that to you later if I have time, but I don't think this one has any feature, as any demo in it. Now, the last one, as I mentioned, productivity improvement is not just about shortcuts. It's also about your tools that you built in. Now, one of the things that I find useful in LabVIEW is that, especially when you are doing support engineering like myself, is when people send in their codes, most likely those has changes in them. So from the minute that you change, that someone sends the code, and the minute that let's say the next day after they send the same code, I'm quite suspicious that there's something that changed in it. So what I would do is I would always run a compare VI for those codes, just to make sure that there is no changes whatsoever in the codes that they're sending. And then from there, I would do whatever support engineering stuff that I would be doing. Now, this feature was actually part of Professional Edition, but in the recent version release of LabVIEW, it will be open for both base and full editions. Now, so we have like the zoom, we have the highlight execution, we have the quick change, we have the double click, and then we have now the compare VI. So those are part of the productivity improvements. Now the next part is on project management. Most likely, as developers, you might be developing codes by yourself, or maybe you are a one-man team who can develop an object-oriented classes and methods and whatsoever in LabVIEW. Good for you. But normally for large-scale productions or for large-scale developments, you would have teams that would do that. You would be maybe having one architect and then 5 developers and those. So those are problems that are those are actually problems in LabVIEW. So as we know, GitHub is actually one of the famous source code control in text-based programming or in C++. But unfortunately, that update is not about that. I've been bugging NI to say because NI has a very niche use of source code controls. They can only use perforce, they can use SVN, but they are never compatible with GitHub or the Git. So I was always bugging NI through the support channel to when will be the support for that, and it did not change for this edition. Hopefully next edition. But for project management side, they brought out 2 major changes in terms of the development or in terms of the update for project management. One is so we have this long-standing upgrade pain points. Wherein, oh, you have a code in 2019 or 2008 or 2015, and the new management wants everything to be upgraded. I want everything to be Windows 11 compatible. So how do I do that? Not all versions of LabVIEW are compatible with Windows 10 or Windows 11. So that's one of the common pain points that I actually noticed doing support engineering. The other pain points is, I have a system that has, let's say, like for example, the demo out. We actually have a demonstration table. So that one has the PXI system in it. So it has DMM, SMUs, whatnots, scopes, function generators, and it has an HSDIO. So an HSDIO was a really good thing back when I was starting as a systems engineer for semiconductor testing. Because back then the vector pattern generator was not made available by NI. So the best thing that NI could come up with was the NI HSDIO, the high-speed digital I/O. Now, when I was trying to upgrade everything to 2023, that's when I noticed that, yep, NIH's DIO is deprecated. It doesn't have the recent release of the driver. So how do I do about that? So that's one of the things that they are trying to address by bringing out what they call LabVIEW add-ons. So in this flowchart, you have let's say for example you have an application which was in LabVIEW 2020. In order for the normal way to do an update or an upgrade for that is that what you should do is that you upgrade your LabVIEW first, and then upgrade your drivers, because your drivers are compiled on a specific version of LabVIEW. So in this case, if you have an original LabVIEW 2020 and you're trying to upgrade it in LabVIEW 2021, it means that there is some incompatibility with LabVIEW drivers made in 2020 and 2021. And that makes it a lot more tedious in terms of upgrading your code. So with LabVIEW 2022 Q3, what they're trying to do is they're trying to be as cohesive as possible, but they're trying to decouple some of the things. So modules, toolkits, drivers. So they're trying to package it as an add-on. That way, you would only need to upgrade your LabVIEW version, and then the add-ons would stay as is. So it's a very good way of decoupling, because that would mean that you wouldn't have to think about version incompatibility. But the thing that you would see that there is a footnote there. As always with NI, there is always a footnote. So be careful with that. So when you have like drivers or select, this is only compatible for certain drivers. They have, I think, released a set of drivers that can function as a LabVIEW add-on that would be compatible with this upgrade. So the other thing is, for example, VIPMs. So we haven't discussed about VIPMs yet. So these are actually toolkits that are outside the NI ecosystem, but they are still tangential to the NI software. Maybe like, for example, OpenG software or OpenG libraries for Boolean, for strings. So those are some of the things that the developers tend to forget when they try to upgrade the drivers, because when you upgrade your code, you would also need to upgrade not just the modules, the toolkits, and the drivers. You would also need to upgrade the VIPM. So this is where the cool name comes in, which is the JKI Dragon. It's really like a very cool name. So the JKI Dragon is a way it's a way to have your dependencies sorted out. And when you say dependencies, it's not just NI dependencies. It could be VIPM dependencies. So all your packages, it is right now a standalone application. So you would have to install JKI Dragon, open the JKI Dragon application, and then through JKI Dragon, open your LabVIEW project. That way, all the appendages will go right with the JKI Dragon. But a little birdie told me that JKI Dragon ultimately, in the future, will be merged into the LabVIEW programming environment. So that will make it a lot easier on migrating your codes, your toolkits, your modules, your VIPMs, and your drivers easier as you move along from one project to another. So we have the LabVIEW add-on for project management, and we have JKI Dragon and LabVIEW add-on for project management. Now we talk about interoperability, which is the last bit of it. When we say interoperability, so as I mentioned, I was working as a systems engineer, as a test development with a contract manufacturer. So essentially, I was out of the NI loop. I wasn't updated at all. So the first time I came back within the NI environment, the first thing that they said, oh, we're becoming a software company. And I was like, yeah, cool. So how does that work then? I was always thinking that when you say software development, you'd all have like, those Python, those Java, those JavaScript, those SQL, all into one and then merge into an NI hardware. That would be so awesome. Now, in this case, we will be focusing on three major developments. So I would just classify them into old, not so old, and a very new two of which are actually open source codes, and one is what we call MATLAB. So in the interoperability, just a bit of an information, MATScript, as we all love, will be deprecated in 2023. That is why in the start of LabVIEW 2021, LabVIEW 2022 Q3, and LabVIEW 2023, they're slowly moving everything from MATScript to MATLAB. So with that, they have released a MATLAB node that would enable the call of a .m file. And as we know, comparatively, I have dealt with MATLAB projects from before, and comparatively in terms of like the computing, the mathematical analysis library, MATLAB is really there. It's not comparable to what LabVIEW has in terms of what they can do. So this is actually a good integration, especially if you're doing some big research programs or big computations, wherein you would call a program from LabVIEW to your MATLAB environment, then back to LabVIEW. So in this case, what happens is that you can actually call your codes, your nodes, and specify the specific MATLAB version that you would be using. And then from there, what you can do is you can actually call in, from your MATLAB API, you can call in the MATLAB environment and do the debugging from there, and then go out. So that's a really nifty way of integrating MATLAB nodes within LabVIEW. Now, the not so old code is it's an open source, which is the Python. So I have been, I remember when I was doing this project for a vision project, and we were supposed to use a vision in Python. And then I asked, so we are developing NI. So how do I integrate a Python code that runs a vision analysis into NI? And I was quite surprised because you would have to call the command executable, call the Python code, and then go from there. And I was like, yeah, it isn't that good for me, for my case. Now, when I knew of it, that there is a release of a Python node, I was quite ecstatic as well, actually, because I was using Python 3.7 back then. So with Python version 3.9, you actually have nodes that you can call Python codes. This one, I'm not so familiar with the class objects actually, but the last one, the supporting virtual environment, the Anaconda. So as you know, Python has a different way of behaving themselves, like the code itself, when it is in a virtual environment. It doesn't work the same way when you are in the actual environment. So that's what we call the Anaconda. It's a really cool name, Anaconda. So an Anaconda integration within LabVIEW. So you would have all that in the recent release of LabVIEW together with the Python nodes that were released in, I think, version 2022 Q3 and Q4. And then this one is the very new one, which I haven't heard at all, which is what we call the NIGPRC or GRPC, or the remote procedure call. So what this does is that the objective of this is an open source platform, or a framework, so to say. So as we know, NI has good hardware, expensive but very good hardware. Now the thing is, when you have expensive and very good hardware, it's really difficult to have a duplicate or a replicate of whatever system that you have, solely because of the pricing itself. Now, what you can do is you can share that hardware across multiple developers, regardless of the OS or the language that they're using, and then call those hardwares within their own individual environments. So in this way, your developers are agnostic of the OS and of the language. So it works. How does the general gRPC work, or the remote procedure call work? What it does is that you would have a repository somewhere on a server, and then you would just check in and check out in this case, in this example, your codes or your DLL. So it's pretty like a source code control, but it's used differently. Now with NI, the architecture would be the same. You have a server and a client. So the server is where your NI hardware sits in. So it will either be using NI drivers or NI drivers or other third-party DLL calls or C# or whatever calls. And then from there, the server will communicate through a TCP/IP stack through your client in any language and in any OS. Now, there are three variants of this. Again, this is quite new. So there are three variants of this in the gRPC and how it is done in LabVIEW. So you have the instrumentation, which sits on a server. So the first one is custom NI hardware with custom, NI hardware with custom third-party programming languages. So in this case, what happens is that you have a hardware on the server running in the server, and then you have drivers and custom codes. So it could be NI drivers or it could be wrappers for those NI drivers. And then you call them through TCP/IP through the individual client. The next version of that is the gRPC device server and client API, wherein it's all NI. So it's NI hardware and driver on the server end. But on the client side, it could be any programming languages on the client side. And the third side would be gRPC solely with LabVIEW. So you have NI hardware driver on the server side, and on the client side, you have LabVIEW, and of course, you have LabVIEW to do the control for that. Now, so we in this section of interoperability, we have discussed about the MATLAB integration, we have discussed about the Python integration, and then we have discussed about the gRPC integration. Now, the thing with gRPC code is that it is an open source right now, so everything is in GitHub. One of the things that that is not so good at the moment is that this one is not compatible with Linux RT at the moment, and it is only available, I think, with GitHub. Now, the last one, which is the roadmap. So this, you cannot account me for this because I did not represent NI. Okay, so the roadmap is essentially what the plan is in terms of the software upgrades coming from this point to the near future, like 2024 Q release, 2024, 2025, and so on. Now, one thing that you need that you may have noticed if you have been within the NI ecosystem is that they're trying to consolidate, or they're trying to streamline. That's the correct term. They're trying to streamline everything from their hardware and software. So you would notice a lot of their hardwares on the specifically in the DAC side of things, the DAQ side of things. A lot of those series are now not supported, or they're in their last time buy or their end of life. So the same goes with the software. So essentially, what NI is trying to do is that you have like certain modules, like the FPGA real-time FPGA, LabVIEW FPGA module, LabVIEW real-time module, and LabVIEW DSC module. So those are the three remaining modules, the big ones. And then everything else will be consolidated into the LabVIEW Pro. And I know I have heard a lot of calls. I have heard a lot of customers screaming over my ears and why is this and why is that. I don't have an answer to that, but essentially, this is where we are going. Now, in terms of the roadmaps, it's still divided into three: project management, interoperability, and then you have system support, and then the UI improvements. Let's just go through them very quickly. So with the project management, we have like those improvements on the project dependencies. Those are very crucial those are very crucial updates, specifically for project management side when you are dealing on upgrading and maintaining bigger codes. And I think on this part, let's see, I don't see major changes. It would be on the interoperability side. So in the interoperability side, you have Python, you have GPC server client, you have the MATLAB, and then you have the very last one, which is the .NET Core assemblies. This was just actually brought up to me actually by one of the customers that I have had, wherein he noted that the .NET framework is moving. I think the last one was the 4.7. And then everything will be shifted into the core .NET. framework, which is a totally different framework. And I was like, yeah, I don't have an idea to that. So let me look it up and see what it is. It's actually a big, it's like a major upgrade on the .NET assemblies that will not make it compatible with LabVIEW at all. So you would not be able to call your .NET assemblies if they are the .NET Core framework. So this is actually a big update in the future, wherein you would be able to call core assemblies if you are not into using at all LabVIEW, if you're just using other programming languages. Now, the next one is system support. This one has generally good releases, like for example, support for Mac OS. I barely have anyone who uses Mac OS. Most of them are actually students, but not on the research side of things. So that's a good one. That's a good thing to note. You have the FPGA 64-bit module support for Compact Rio. On the UI improvement side, I think the best one would be on dynamically creating controls at runtime. This is actually nifty in terms of debugging, because as you know, when you're running on an executable, you specifically for executable, because you don't have the source code for it. So what happens is that you would have to right click, create probe, but if you have the block diagram. But if you don't have a block diagram, how do you debug it? So that is one of the good improvements or updates that will be coming in the future for LabVIEW. So we have, just to wrap it up, we have improvements on what is that? The control and indicators, productivity improvements, so that was the term. And you have project management improvements, you have interoperability, and you have this roadmaps for this one. So that's the end of my session. Am I on time? All right. So questions? Do we have any questions? So if you do have any questions, and I will just be at the booth over for the entire 2 days, you can just like ask me. Right. Thank you.
Sure, I've got one question.
Yeah.
Just before you showed us a list of you consolidating the licenses.
Yeah.
That one. Yep. That slide. Is LabVIEW Vision in there somewhere?
No, it's not in there. So it's a totally, as far as I know, the Vision is still a standalone software. So it will not be incorporated into LabVIEW Pro. One of the things that is incorrect there is the application module builder. So they tried to actually, and I tried to actually build it in the professional, but due to the feedback coming from the customers, they have moved it out and retained it as an individual module. So you can purchase it as a separate module. Because it doesn't make sense to buy professional just to get the application builder. So that's one of the things that I failed to point out.